Our best ideas don't come from looking at other people in our industry. Inspiration can strike at any point. We look at culture, we look at people, behavior, how the world is shifting. And this is our palette of inspiration, of stimulation to create what is next. How people think about design is where the magic is. It's the spaces in between, it's the meeting of minds, it's the fusion of thinking across disciplines and types of people that are involved in the process. How people think, how people behave. Is it emotionally resonant? Is it engaging? Is it cost effective? Is it sensitive to planet as well as person? There's lots of things you build around this core of a great idea, but that great idea comes from observing behavior and usability and lifestyle and tapping into the thing that maybe could be a little bit better based on some sentiments around that. And then you translate that into something really compelling that solves for it.
Coming up on Design Mindset, why the founder of Layer believes that the future belongs to designers who look everywhere except their own industry for inspiration. Hey everyone, welcome back to Design Mindset. I'm Radhika Seth. Today's conversation is about something that separates good designers from truly innovative ones. The ability to see connections where others see chaos, to borrow ideas from completely unrelated fields and transform them into breakthrough solutions. My guest today is Benjamin Hubert, founder and creative director of Layer, a 30% London-based design studio that becomes legendary for their ability to cross-pollinate ideas across industries. Whether he's designing the FlexFusion 5-in-1 modular styling system for SharkNinja Beauty, creating Beosound Balance speaker that borrows from architectural principles, or developing cryptocurrency hardware inspired by luxury objects, Benjamin and his team have mastered the art of intelligent borrowing. But here's what makes Layer's approach fascinating. It's not random. There's a methodology to how they identify transferable principles from fields as diverse as medical devices, luxury watches, and even natural systems. As Benjamin puts it, it's about understanding the layers of value, the layers of how people interact with objects and experiences. Today, we're deep diving into that multi-layered process. Benjamin, welcome to Design Mindset.
Thanks, Radhika. Great to be here.
Lovely to have you as well. Benjamin, let's start with the philosophy behind cross-pollination. So when designers look for inspiration, they subtly, study other designers in their fields. But you and your team come across, who actively look at different avenues as well. What led you to believe that the best ideas can also come from outside your immediate industry?
So I would say that a good designer never really looks within their own industry. And I think industry wide, the world would probably agree with that. Other studios, other designers aren't really looking necessarily at their own industry. I think what people, and certainly we do at Layer, look at is behavior. They look at how people are living, working, feeling, and what they're doing now, what they're going to be doing next, how the challenges and frustrations might lead to finding opportunities to do something better, to find a feature that solves something more successfully. And in doing so, you glean insights which are powerful fuel to drive new feature sets and new product, service, and system opportunities. This is a job or a role about people, for people, with people, and truly understanding people and their mindset is so key to finding unusual, inspiring, but most importantly, useful ideas of how we can perhaps live happier and healthier. The design team at Layer will look at lots of broad cultural sources of inspiration, whether it's fashion or architecture and things like this. But that is a downstream activity that
Mm,
is more related to form, feeling, finish,
mm,
CMF and things like that, which are softer and emotional. But the building blocks of great design is functional problem solving. And that problem solving comes from observation of how people are living now and next.
mm. Wow, that's fascinating. So then, if you had to educate someone, how would you tell them to distinguish between, productive borrowing ideas or just collecting random interesting things? Is there a method how you and your team identify what could be, transferable from other streams?
Um, I, I think inspiration is inspiration. So we don't limit or stop people looking at any sources that they think are
Mm,
exciting or compelling.
mm,
This is the nature of design that we have in the studio lots of different personalities, lots of different points
mm,
of view, people
mm,
from all over the world, and
mm,
that's that melting pot of ideas and how people think about design is where the magic is. It's the spaces in between, it's the meeting of minds, it's the fusion of thinking across
mm,
disciplines and types of people that are involved in the process.
mm,
It's really important to um, generate a really wide palette and foundation of thinking that you can then later
mm,
filter and down select and process what you think is more or less appropriate, more or less compelling, more or less relevant to the
mm,
use case and challenge that you're solving for. But that's the beauty of inspiration. It is uncorked, it is wide, it is unfiltered in the beginning, and you need to do that and let people play in that mode of thinking without limiting it in order to find things that are invigorating, exciting, and unusual.
mm,
Um, our design process is rigorous, and we make sure that the things that are on our periphery and that might inspire us either consciously or subconsciously
mm,
are diligently looked at so that we're not doing things that repeat thinking that is in and around the space that we're operating.
mhm,
Um, so it's a combination of giving space to operate and space to think,
mm,
and at a certain point introducing a sense of control and diligence that makes sure that ensures the answer that we're arriving at is differentiated,
mm,
but whilst maintaining its core identity of solving the problem that we're facing. And design is a balancing act, and you're constantly balancing that broad inspiration with being structured and ordered with how you might prioritize or select something.
correct, correct. So if I were to ask you, would there be any example that you could share, where you got inspired or took inspiration from a completely unexpected source, and then it became central to the solution?
Cool. It's a big wide question. I mean, in so many senses, every project, big or small,
Yeah.
has a sense of surprise in it because every journey in design that we take arrives at a destination which we may not have thought about in the outset. So lots of this is about how people use products,
Mm,
how their spaces and places are organized
mm,
for good or bad, and a format architecture of a product might take on something a bit surprising. Like one of the BNO projects we worked on in Emerge turned
mm,
into almost a book-like object, thin, spine-like, with a small footprint, because the observation was people are putting a certain size speaker on their bookshelf or side table, which is really at a premium in terms of space. So we need something narrow and small but tall because we have to pack a large audio package into it. And so the unusual format of a book-like object, which initially might feel like, okay, well, you looked at a book and then we turned it into a book-like speaker,
mm,
fell out of the use case that people are space short,
mm,
but they still want great sounding audio in their homes.
mm. Lovely. So yeah, I just love it, because it's not about aesthetics. You're borrowing functional principles and user behaviors. Is there a way that you train your diverse team of industrial designers, engineers, strategists to see these deeper patterns? Is there some system that you have in place?
I mean, we follow a very structured design process, a funnel process where
Mhm.
broad thinking, collecting different reference points, thinking about people, place, context, mindsets,
Mm,
what they're inspired by, what they buy into, the way they live and work. All of these things is wide and broad and exciting, and we structure these things in a consumable, packaged research deck of challenges and opportunities and who we may or may not want to resonate with in terms of a product or service answer to it.
mm,
And once you have this as a jumping off point,
mm,
and you set those foundations strong, then we go into concept generation where
mm,
we're exploring a really wide range of concepts that answer the questions that have been posed in the research phase
mm,
in different ways. There's never one answer to any design challenge. There's different types of responses based on what you're prioritizing as your features or positioning in the market. And we go broad in our concepts, and then from that point onwards, it's testing, prototyping, down selection, technical integration, working towards something which is tangible, actionable for production implementation, so that great design can be accessible and for the many. And I'm a big believer that great designers ship. They ship products. They don't just create concepts and thought pieces in isolation, but they put things in people's hands that make hopefully an incremental difference to their lives, if not a slightly larger one,
mm,
and a focus on planet and person,
mm,
sustainability, longevity, and things that make that individual or collective happier and healthier.
mm. Wow, lovely. So you've also worked with, very diverse projects like Nike, Google, BNO, Samsung, Brown, and they're very, very diverse. So how does this, breadth of experience fuel your ability to, cross-pollinate ideas across your team? How do you manage
Mm.
that?
It's a good question. And so what you've referenced there are brands. So yes, we work across a really interesting range of startups, scale-ups, Fortune 100 household names.
Mm,
But the fuel to the fire of our design is in part brand, but it's really the other things that we're exposed to. So the beauty of Layer is that it's very broad, broader than most
mm,
design agencies. In that, one day we might be working with Foxconn on an incredible CNC engineered aluminium chassis with incredible overmolded, injection molded parts that make something thinner, flatter in consumer electronics, which is high production, highly technological, bleeding or cutting edge. But
mm,
the next day, we might be visiting a glass blowing facility in Murano, working with craftspeople with a beautiful material that expresses its emotional qualities. And
mm,
these two ends of the spectrum is always the way that I thought about design. The way that Layer is set up recalls some of my background in learning and consultancy and craft.
mm,
And it means that our points of reference are really wide. So we arrive at the destination of a solution in a way and perhaps a place that's a little bit more unexpected
mm.
because we recall these really disparate points of reference.
Hmm. Lovely. That's such a smart way to, think about it. But I imagine sometimes clients may want you to stay in your lane, like how would you then convince brands like maybe a Nike or a Google that, if you're using experiences or taking inspiration from other industries, can actually solve their problems better? Do you anytime face any resistance, or is it easy to convince brands?
Oh, I mean, everything is a collaboration. So it's not about us saying one thing is better or
Mm,
another way is not as good. It's just about presenting collectively, working
mm,
closely with the brands that come to us around going, look, these are lots of possible ways that we might be able to approach this together. They all have their benefits. Some of them have their challenges, and it's a really tight-knit process and team that is built across ours and their team to be one team to think about maybe what we all want to do. We're a complement to the brands and individuals that come to us. Not really designed to conflict. We might disrupt an industry, but together with the brand or individual partner, we form a united team to think about how we create that game-changing or disruptive moment so that they can make a point of difference and cut through to more people, drive more revenue, help the planet around us. And there's a sense of great togetherness to achieve that.
So like I touched upon FlexFusion a little while earlier because we featured it on Yanko Design and it was really received very well. So this collaboration with SharkNinja Beauty is a good example of crossing industries as well. It's a 5-in-1 modular system, styling system that brings professional salon efficiency principles into the home use. So walk me through, how would you identify what to use and what principles would you use in a product like this?
So we've been working with SharkNinja for a few years, and they have an amazing team. They do some incredible fast-paced engineering to make and break categories, and we worked across their UK, US, and Asian teams very, very collaboratively, very iteratively across, I don't know, something like 60 categories, many different types of products. And our role was to think about how to unify things, a treatment of consistent design language, to complement their internal mechanisms and how they think about design, offer alternatives that might ask some slightly different questions, and just be a really complementary partner in creating anything like the FlexFusion product, which something that SharkNinja do so well is they take design, they use design, they're fueled by design, and it's measured by this incredible ROI where their products sell extraordinarily well. Millions of people use them. And the greatest validation of design is in the hands of people and how they buy into, sign up to, become part of a brand world, review the product so positively. And this is what I mean about real designers or great designers ship. The acid test of whether design is successful or not is so largely part of that equation of, can we create an audience for it? Is that sustainable? And is it improving on what came before? And the FlexFusion product does that by combining different features together. It creates a modular kit of parts. It's taking lots of disparate products and saying, actually, you just need one product to do all of these beauty moments in your ritual. And in so doing, it's sort of really efficient. It's really tightly packaged, and it has a very gentle and consistent design language that join all the different types of accessories that blend, warmth and heat and interaction to create a really successful multiversal styling tool.
So here's what I'm really curious about. Do you ever worry about borrowing something or taking inspiration that doesn't translate culturally? Like, has there been a situation, like a principle that works in one context but fails in another? Has that ever happened, or do you ever think about such things?
It's a really good question, and it's really appropriate because most of our work at Layer is international. So we do huge amounts of work in the US and Asia and the rest of the world. We do some in the UK, but it's a smaller proportion, and you have to be really culturally sensitive. So there's some good examples of this where status
Mm.
and aspiration can be quite different. So if we work in India or we work in China and we work in Northern Europe,
Mm.
the reference point changes a lot.
Mm.
So how the type of premiumization, the type of positioning is different. So we might manage this with different SKUs. We might use color, material, and finish to make it more culturally sensitive and appropriate for those different markets, whilst the core of the product maintains consistency. So
Mm.
effectively, the design is scalable across region and geographies to make sure it captures enough audience globally. But at the bedrock of it is a great idea.
Mm.
Some of the articulation of that is nuanced depending on the region. But if you come up with a great idea, it can really cut through some of those geographical differences, as long as you're sensitive with some other parts of the product or service execution.
Mm. Sorry, I thought you were continuing. No worries. So that was, I would like to move to another, a little deeper into the process. So when your team is researching a new field for inspiration, what are you actually looking for? Are you studying the objects, the behaviors, the underlying systems? What is it that first point of focus that the team looks at?
Mm. Well, the first moment is just broad collection of inputs. But what we're looking for is an aha moment, a moment of going, okay, so somebody said this.
Hmm.
They are finding this aspect challenging. We can create a feature to solve that. We're looking for this kernel of a situational comment that gives us a point of view to make something better.
Hmm.
This is the most powerful tool when you're creating something progressive, innovative, that takes things forward.
Hmm.
This is probably the bedrock of success. Then there are lots of things built around that. There are lots of things around: is it emotionally resonant? Is it engaging? Is it cost effective? Is it sensitive to planet as well as person? There's lots of things you build around this core of a great
Hmm.
idea, but that great idea comes from observing behavior and usability and lifestyle
Hmm.
and tapping into the thing that maybe could be a little bit better
Hmm.
based on some sentiments around that. And then you translate that into something really compelling that solves for it.
Wow, that's really insightful. Is there, like, if you could walk me through an example of how you've applied this systematic, process that you have in place in any of your current projects, like maybe the Beosound Balance or the Dosh Telecom connectivity concept, if there is.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, sure, we can use one of those examples. We've been working with BNO for many years, and Balance has been an incredibly successful um, project, both in terms of impact and something which is very recognizable, as well as commercially successful. And honestly, we designed that 6 or 7 years ago. I remember it came out in 2020, and we've done several versions of it since. And it came out in the pandemic, which was in its own right a very unusual moment to
Mm.
launch something like that. But we still now see it in nearly, I would say, 50% of the visual briefs we might receive from clients. And that might make sense because we designed it and so they put some of those things in there. But I still see it as a reference point for the design community, which is a very humbling moment to see that something like that has cut through and remained in people's mind's eye for so long.
Yeah.
But I mean, that project, what created the aha moment really was that we wanted to challenge the traditionally technical audiophile, traditional
Mm.
feeling of loudspeakers.
Mm.
So, something that's techie, something that's for guys, something that's black, something that's traditionally high tech, and all the things which, have existed in that industry for so long. The moment was just like, how do we create something that lives so harmoniously in your home that you almost consider it like just one of the objects? It blends in, it's vase-like, it's like an artifact that you've collected over time. And how do we inject inherent value in it that is supportive, but just above and beyond the technical prowess and functionality of it? And so it's really like designing an object that is based on acoustic principles, that we knew that we wanted room filling 360, but also something that could be directional. So if you put it in the middle of the room, it fires the bass up out of this gap in the product, and then it will fire the audio drivers, the slightly smaller drivers will fire forwards. And so you get a very room filling audio. But if you move it against or towards a wall, you can change the configuration and it will use the wall as a reflector to give you even more forward-facing audio when you don't want 360. So the aha moment really was, okay, well, how do we achieve all of this and challenge the zeitgeist of audio design? And the approach to stack all the elements to achieve both of these asks felt once we arrived at it, it felt really natural. And then at this point, even in the early designs, we were like, okay, well, this is it. And we tried lots of things. We were experimenting with lots of different formats and functionality. But when we arrived at this point, we were like, okay, we've got it. And it went right through from that point on with the brand.
Oh, and I've always wondered this, how do you and your team stay current across so many different industries? Like, it seems that it would require constant learning and curiosity across, 30 different perspectives of the kind of people that you work with. So how do you manage that?
How do I manage the team? This is the question.
Yeah, how does it? Yeah.
I mean, trying to be a great designer or a good designer is about listening. So that goes for listening to the voice of the consumer, listening to the brand partner or individuals you're working with, listening to the team in the project. And our structure here gives everyone a voice. It is reasonably flat. Everybody, a good idea is a good idea. Everyone is encouraged to speak up and share. And so trusting this, having patience for this, and enabling this is my role. And it means that whether you're a fresh graduate or you've been a designer for 15 years, you contribute to a project here. And it's so important because that's how great design and great ideas are created, but it's also how people feel invested in the projects.
So do you think that there are any industries or fields that you can consistently find rich sources or, inspirations from? Or are there any domains that, that generate more ideas that are translatable or transferable insights that you can get from? Is there any concept like that in your vision?
I mean, I'm personally very interested in fashion. So the fashion industry is something I'm both personally and professionally engaged in. And when we're working on furniture, for example, so it's another sort of string to the bow of layer. When we're thinking about textiles, when we're thinking about upholstery, when we're thinking about building, debuilding, design for disassembly, maintenance, and things like that, actually the fashion industry of garment design, of wearability, of changeable garments is a reference point we think about quite often. So the ability to undo, to take apart, the detailing, the way you treat a seam, the way you think about how textile falls over form. All of these things impart a reference from the fashion industry. So, we don't try and follow the fast fashion of that industry in the way it's so transient, but the beauty of the craftsmanship in that space is a great source of inspiration.
That's really lovely to know, that you look at the fashion industry, and it's a great framework to follow also. So looking at design industry today, especially after your recent retrospective at Milan Design Week also. Do you think we're getting better or worse at, this kind of cross-pollination of ideas and taking inspiration from places, or are we stagnating? Where would you place us?
Oh, I'm not sure I know how to answer that really. I think lots of people work in different ways. I think the beauty of the design industry is that it is disparate and it is varied.
Mm-hmm.
In and itself, that forms a broad breadth of exciting possibilities. That there are lots of different ways to think about design and approach it. Um, I think we have a lot of open-minded design leaders in the world that are pulling from lots of reference points to move things forward. We live in a very exciting time. Very challenging. The world is quite chaotic, and there are many challenges around the world, and there's a lot of change. Change is a great source of fuel for designers to embrace and channel it towards the way, things could be different, things could be better.
Yeah.
I see this a lot in industry wide, that this is being used as a time to make a difference, to suggest new ways of working or new ways to arrive at
Mm,
doing things differently and better.
mm,
So I think design can always do more. The industry can always take on the bigger challenges, and
mm.
but it doesn't really operate in isolation.
Correct.
The most effective design works in partnership with other people's agendas, whether
Yeah.
that's global producers of things, whether it's politics, governments, communities.
Mm,
Design is a component of a wider thought piece, and when all of those things come together, that's when design can make a difference.
mm,
And if anything needs to happen, that collective thinking
mm,
could be improved and could happen more often.
mm. Wow. Okay, so I have a very bold question for you, Rao. If you could force every designer in your team to spend a year working in a completely different industry, which one would you choose and why?
I think it's like the question is a trap. You don't force anybody to do anything. Is the answer to this? People find their own path, and my general advice for designers is to be an expert generalist. So
Mm,
be involved in lots of different things. Be open to exploring new ideas in different areas. Do things in your spare time which give you senses of creativity that are different to your day job, that might bleed into your day job. Take on projects at your workplace that surprise you and challenge you that you don't have experiences in. The answer to this is be an explorer.
mm.
Don't be pigeonholed in one place, and certainly don't be forced to do anything.
Lovely. So this brings us to the fun part, where we do the design mindset challenge. Given your experience and expertise in cross industry inspiration and Leah's recent work with everything from crypto hardware to AI assistants, I have a perfect scenario for you. Okay, listen up. So you're approached by a traditional luxury car manufacturer that's struggling with the transition into electric vehicles. They don't want to abandon their heritage or craftsmanship and performance, but they need to appeal to the tech savvy consumers who expect seamless digital integration and sustainable materials. However, instead of looking at other companies or electric or traditional for inspiration, you decide to borrow from three companies, completely different industries to solve this challenge. Which three industries would you study? What principles would you borrow from each? And how would you combine them into something that honors automotive heritage while feeling completely fresh?
Did you say this was the fun part? I think, like, how do you even answer this? I think there's no kind of silver bullet to that question. You can't just sort of pick three industries and brands that come together and magically solve for what is a really difficult challenge. Yeah, I know where the question comes from. It comes from lots of brands moving from a traditional customer base and um, a certain combustion engine based approach to hybrid or electric. I'm a big believer in taking people with you.
Mm,
So change is hard for everyone. The human condition and the mindset is not set up to radically absorb change really seamlessly. It challenges us, it confronts us, it makes us rethink the things we knew before. And maybe, are we doing it right? Are we doing it wrong? Should I be doing it next? It's a state of anxiety. Um, Change happens incrementally and it's an evolution of what came before. It's so important in bringing people with you, taking them on the journey and guiding them around what's great before, what's good still, what do we take forward, what could be introduced, but most importantly, why it's good for them, why it's of a benefit to them, why it helps the world around us. Give people a reason to make the change and to embrace it. So it doesn't feel confrontational and it isn't something that is difficult to absorb because it feels natural, because it feels like the natural state of the things that people should do next.
mm,
So all of this is about understanding mindset and designing for mindset.
mm,
It is not about cherry picking certain other approaches and combining them and seeing how they work.
mm,
We do lots of this type of strategic work,
mm.
and it's about putting people in the center of this configuration and taking them with you.
Lovely. This is one of the most common things that I have heard in all the podcasts that I have recorded with, the eminent designers like you. It's all about the people whom you're designing for, going back into the history of them, the end consumer. So it also uh, revalidates and solidifies that, design is actually a business solution and it's an investment that brands need to make into because a lot of them shy away from that. So thank you, for sharing this perspective with us. And now it's time for the rapid fire. The first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you these questions, and let's just have some fun with it. Okay? So
Okay, go for
complete, complete this sentence. The best designers are basically professional.
Thinkers.
Lovely. One industry you've never taken inspiration from or borrowed from, but are very curious about.
One industry we've never taken inspiration from. But there's probably loads of industries that we've never taken inspiration from. Yeah, I can't. There's no answer to this. Sorry, pass.
Okay. Be honest. Do you judge other designers by how narrow their reference points are?
No,
Okay.
I try not to judge anybody, but when you're thinking about success,
Mhm.
then what is successful? Then you think about, is it natural? Is it appropriate? Does it work? Does it solve something better? Then you can sort of go, okay, well, yeah, I believe it. I use it. I would use it. Or not. But everyone has a slightly different point of view.
Yeah. With AI tools becoming prevalent, how is cross-pollination research changing?
It's probably getting faster. So we use lots of different AI tools here, but they're a source of sort of collection and curiosity rather than solving for something. So it's a mechanism to collect faster. Is it collecting better?
Hmm.
TBC, depending on what you're working on. But yeah, it speeds up certain aspects of it, but it doesn't really, for us, it doesn't necessarily make the creative thinking part of it
Hmm.
more efficient, really, or more effective
Hmm. Okay.
yet.
Yet. One field that every designer should study regardless of their speciality.
Psychology.
Psychology.
So how people think, how people behave, the bedrock of great design is understanding behavior.
And this last one. In one word, what makes good borrowing different from copying?
Points of separation.
Mm.
So, borrow all you want, but reconfigure it, recompile it, reposition it, um, create change. Don't just directly translate.
Benjamin, this has been an absolutely fascinating journey. You've given us a masterclass on how to strategically be curious, not just collecting inspiration, but intelligently identifying what principles can be transformed and transferred across contexts and with full team approach. Your key insight that's really staying with me, that the best innovation happens when you combine deep expertise in your own field with systematic curiosity about everyone else's fields as well. And you build a team that can layer these insights together. So it's not about being a generalist, it's about being a specialist who uses their ideas wisely and collaborates intelligently. For everyone listening, here's your challenge this week. Pick an industry you know nothing about and spend an hour studying how they solve problems. Don't look for aesthetics to copy, look for principles to adapt. That's how breakthrough design really happens. Benjamin, where can people follow Layer's work and see these ideas and principles in action?
Here's the plug, hey? So, I mean, you can go on our website, layerdesign.com. You can go on our Instagram, layer_design. Or find us on LinkedIn under the same. So, we are a great believer in communication. We communicate our process, our products, the things we do as a team. So if you're interested in how we think, then these are great platforms.
Super. Thanks for joining Design Mindset and for showing us that the best designers aren't just creative. They're curious about everything and that they know how to build teams and amplify their curiosity. Next week, we will be also using these principles to apply personal transformations. It's going to be very exciting. Remember, don't just look within your industry, look everywhere and layer those insights intelligently. See you next week.